601 Little Potato Part 2. Compared to Zhu Yueyu's own experience, this little girl was really too miserable. She even thought that the most delicious food was potatoes. If she was in her shoes, she would definitely not be able to live so carefreely. It was because of this that Zhu Yueyu really wanted to bring her back with them to Cloud Sky Peak. At this moment, Yi Zan also put down the little girl and asked, "Little girl, where did you find food after that old man fell asleep?" When she heard this, the little girl looked around vigilantly and said in a soft voice, "Didn't you guys notice that group of children running past us? Those children would beg in the village every day in exchange for food. But why would I do such a thing? I would much rather snatch food. As long as I give these little wimps a good beating, they will obediently give me food." After saying this, the little girl even clenched her pink fist and raised it up, as if trying to show Yi Zan how powerful she was. After hearing this, Yi Zan was dumbfounded. Despite her young age, this little girl had learned the survival skills necessary for living in this village. She had already become the overlord of this group of children, and no one dared to provoke her. However, he did not quite understand how she possessed such great power at such a young age. Based on what she told them, her parents were probably just ordinary people, so it was unlikely that this strength was hereditary. Another possibility was that she was a reincarnation of an expert, which was slightly more likely. Yi Zan thought to himself for a while, and then smiled and asked, "Little girl, do you want to come back with me and learn how to cultivate and use spiritual power?" After hearing this, the little girl was stunned and asked, "What is spiritual power?" Yi Zan smiled, then snapped his fingers at the wall in front of him. With a loud bang, the wall collapsed. After that, Yi Zan said, "That's what spiritual power can do. Do you want to learn?" The little girl's mouth was wide open in shock. Then, mimicking Yi Zan's actions, she tried it out, but nothing of the sort happened. This was the first time she had seen such a powerful move. Even the berserk beasts she had encountered back then would probably be easily killed by this move. If she could master this move, from now on, no matter where the children were, they would have to run away whenever they saw her. At this moment, the little girl's heart was already filled with excitement. She recalled the words the old man had said to her. If she wanted to get good food, she had to first defeat her peers. "I want to learn. I want to go back with you to learn how to cultivate." After saying this, the little girl was already dancing with joy. Yi Zan also smiled proudly. This little girl's mind was really too simple and straightforward. All it took was a simple display of power. However, if one thought about it carefully, one would realize that most children were filled with curiosity towards the unknown. This little girl was probably the same. "Sure. However, if you really want to learn how to cultivate, you have to call me your teacher. Only then will I teach you," Yi Zan smiled and said softly. Hearing this, the little girl was dumbfounded. She asked, "What is a teacher?" Yi Zan felt a little helpless at this time, but he still patiently explained to her what a teacher was. However, after she figured it out, the little girl was unhappy and looked at Yi Zan with disdain. "If that's the case, then I'd rather not learn how to cultivate." Her words dumbfounded Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian. "What's the reason for this?" Zhu Yueyu quickly asked. After all, there were many people who wanted to be Yi Zan's disciple, yet this little girl did not want to. Besides, as long as she became Yi Zan's disciple, would she ever have to be afraid of not being able to eat good food? What was going on in this little girl's head? Moments later, the little potato tugged on Zhu Yueyu's hand and motioned for her to move her ear closer. Then, she said in a soft voice, "Sister, I think this brother is a little silly. If I acknowledge him as my teacher, what can I learn? Sister, why don't you stop learning under him and change teachers?" Yi Zan had actually heard her quiet words clearly, and his face darkened. Even though she was a child, was it not a little inappropriate to call someone silly in front of others? Yi Zan was amused. He really did not expect to meet someone like this little girl in this village. Countless people wanted to be his disciple, but she did not even bat an eyelid, and even called him silly. It was really heartbreaking. PFF'd. Feng Xian could not help but laugh out loud. She rubbed her face and said in a serious tone, "Little potato, let me tell you. My teacher is amazing. If you become his disciple, and he teaches you how to cultivate, it will make you much stronger. From then on, no one from the same generation will be able to beat you. Just watch and take a good look." As soon as she finished speaking, she stretched out her hand, and a ray of light radiated from her hand, which shattered another wall. Heavens! Sister, you're so strong. The little potato was stunned. Such power had completely changed her outlook on life. She was dancing with joy and asked with an excited face, Sister, are you sure you're not lying to me? As long as I become his disciple, I'll be able to defeat all my peers. This was what made her most excited. 602 Little Potato Part 3. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So At this moment, Feng Xian started to tempt her. That's for sure. Your current village is only a very small place. There are no strong children in it. But if you go back with us, you'll meet all kinds of people in the future, and all of them are very powerful. You have to defeat these people to become the strongest person of your generation. The little potato fell into deep thought. I have to defeat these people before I can be considered the strongest person of my generation. She mumbled to herself. Moments later, her eyes seemed to shine. She stared straight at Yizan. She had already made her decision. All right, I'll go back with you guys later. Then, she suddenly thought of a very important question and quickly asked, Can I eat delicious potatoes if I go back with you? After she finished speaking, the little girl impatiently wiped the drool from the corners of her mouth, which made her look rather adorable. Zhuge Yuyu rubbed her little head and said, Little potato, don't worry. As long as you come back with us, there will be plenty of delicious food. I can make you a variety of dishes. The little potato's eyes lit up. You're not lying to me, right? Wah, big sister, you're the best. After she hugged Zhuge Yuyu, she went over to Yizan and said, I've already made up my mind. I want to be your disciple, and I want to learn powerful abilities and beat all of the children my age to the ground. Hearing this, Yizan did not know what to say. It seemed that he had accepted a little tyrant as a disciple. However, when he thought about how funny this little girl was, and how lively Cloud Sky Peak would be with her around, he felt pretty happy. He was also very interested in the possibility that she was the reincarnation of some expert. Which expert had reincarnated as this little girl? Yizan did not think too much about it, and simply said, All right, but you have to grow up quickly. Only then can I teach you more powerful techniques. From now on, you're the third disciple of Cloud Sky Peak. The name Little Potato doesn't suit you. I'll call you Shang Yun. After thinking about it carefully, the little potato did not think it was a big deal, so she nodded. Yizan then introduced Zhuge Yuyu and Feng Xian to her, and Shang Yun greeted them obediently. Cold first sister, warm second sister, third junior sister greets you both. Hearing this, Zhuge Yuyu was stunned. However, Feng Xian was quite happy. She rubbed Shang Yun's little head in a very pampering manner and wiped her little face clean. Little sister Shang Yun, you're so cute. Feng Xian was truly happy to have obtained such a cute and interesting junior sister. Even though the latter was still young, she had suffered many trials and tribulations. Despite this, she still managed to remain pure and happy every day. This was not something that ordinary people could do. All right, let's leave. As soon as he said this, Yizan suddenly felt a gust of wind blowing in his face, and then a figure quickly slipped away. Damn it, if you have the ability, then don't leave. You actually dared to snatch my potato. If I catch you, I'll definitely beat you to death. As soon as the voice rang out, Shang Yun chased after it and instantly disappeared. Yizan was stunned. What was going on? At the front, the other children's faces turned pale when they saw the little potato rushing over. They started running again. Those who ran slower were caught by the little potato, who grabbed their collars and threw them over her shoulders. Oh my god! Zhuge Yuyu and Feng Xian exclaimed in shock at the same time. Was this little girl not a little too awesome? Teacher. Zhuge Yuyu did not know what to say. This disciple of mine will definitely have extraordinary achievements in the future. Even though he was shocked, he still said it happily. Although she was still young, her strength had actually reached such a level. With his teaching, in addition to her powerful strength, how could anyone of the same generation be able to beat her? It would be easy for her to reach the sealed immortal realm. He turned around and looked at his two disciples. You two can follow her. When they heard this, Zhuge Yuyu and Feng Xian quickly caught up to Shang Yun. Seeing that the latter still wanted to beat a child up, Feng Xian quickly stopped her. Little sister Yun, you can't just beat him up for no reason. After hearing Feng Xian's words, Shang Yun quickly replied, I'm not doing it for no reason. This brat tried to steal my potatoes. I must teach him a good lesson today. I'm not a stinky brat. You're the stinky brat, the child cursed. Even though he was not as strong as Shang Yun, he still refused to admit defeat. His mouth was very stubborn. In terms of age, this child was a few years older than her, so what right did she have to call him a brat? However, after hearing the child's words, Shang-yun became even angrier. She replied with a mocking expression, "Tisk, the old man told me that all these children who can't win against me are all stinky brats. If I'm not wrong, you'll be crying in pain after I slap you, right? Wouldn't that make you a stinky brat?" Upon hearing this, the child started wailing and shouting. "Don't think that just because you're strong you can suppress me like this. If you have the ability, then stay here and wait for me. I'll call for people to beat you up." Shang-yun was not afraid at all. She put her hands on her waist and said, "All right, hurry up and call those people over. I'll beat up as many as you bring." HMPH. Looking at the two children who were quarreling, Zhu Yuyu did not know what to say. She felt somewhat embarrassed by this. Feng Xian, on the other hand, looked at the two of them with a face full of smiles. She rubbed Shang-yun's head and said, "Okay, little sister Yun, that's enough. I'll give you 200 potatoes when we get back, okay?" 603 New Family. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So let's not pursue this matter any further and leave first. We shouldn't keep teacher waiting for too long. Are you really going to give me that many potatoes? When she heard that Feng Xian was actually going to give her so many potatoes, Shang-yun was already grinning from ear to ear as she looked at that stinky brat very complacently. HMPH. You should be thanking my big sister. If it wasn't for her, you would have been beaten up by me. Seeing Feng Xian coaxing Shang-yun so easily, Zhu Yuyu was very surprised. Could it be that this little girl was really that obsessed with potatoes? Let's go back. As said this, Shang-yun sauntered over to Yizan's side with her senior sisters. Yizan looked at the little girl and suddenly thought of the old man she was talking about. Yizan already knew that the old man must have passed away, but the little girl still thought he was just sleeping. After noticing this problem, Yizan looked at Shang-yun and said, "Yuner, take me to where you used to live first. I'll help you deal with some karmic ties that might be bad for your future cultivation." Although Shang-yun did not know what Yizan meant by this, she still nodded and agreed. She brought Yizan and the others over to a dilapidated temple. The roof of the temple was leaking, and it barely provided any cover from the rain. As soon as he entered, Yizan could already smell an indescribable stench. After looking around, he found that the old man's body was about to rot. However, Shang-yun did not know what was going on. She shouted the moment she entered the temple, "Old man, I'm here to see you. Are you still sleeping? Just look at you, so many days have passed, yet you're still lying down. You're really a big lazy oaf." Seeing that the old man was still lying on the ground, Shang-yun turned to Yizan and said, "Teacher, this is the place you wanted me to bring you to." Hearing this, Yizan rubbed the girl's little head, and then waved his left hand and wrapped the old man's body with spiritual power. It had been many days, and the old man's soul had disappeared without a trace. Even if he was a real god, he would not be able to save him. Yizan wanted to dig a hole and bury the body so that it could rest in peace. After wrapping the old man's body with spiritual power, they went over to a bamboo forest behind the ruined temple. Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian then worked together to dig a hole. After digging, Yizan slowly lowered the old man's body down, letting him rest in peace. After burying it with soil, Yizan even carved a tombstone for the grave. He looked at Shang-yun and said, "Little girl, the old man who gave you food will be sleeping here from now on. You have to remember this place. Do you understand? When you grow up to be a big girl and remember what this old man said, come here and see him." After hearing this, Shang-yun was a little confused. Feng Xian gently rubbed her head and consoled her, "Don't overthink it. From now on, we're your family." Shang-yun nodded her head when she heard this. However, she lowered her head and felt an indescribable and inexplicable sadness. Her eyes were full of tears. Seeing this, Yizan was even more sure of his conjecture. She should be the reincarnation of an expert, but who? Yizan felt that the disciple he had just accepted would definitely reach the sealed immortal realm in the future. Although this girl was quite fierce at the moment, the talent and physical strength that she possessed even eclipsed Yizan's at the same level. Yizan looked at her carefully again and found that a seal had appeared on her forehead. After taking a deep breath, Yizan became even more certain. He really did not expect that he would stumble upon such a special disciple in a village in the middle of nowhere. At this moment, Yizan curiously pinched Shang-yun's arm and carefully examined it. Her body is truly unique. Yizan stared at the girl in disbelief, but moments later, he lowered his head and fell into a state of deep thought. Moments later, Yizan transferred some spiritual power into the girl's body to help her cover up the strong aura around her body. It was better to be careful to avoid being noticed by others who might have ill intentions. After settling these matters, a smile appeared on Yizan's face. He looked at his 3 disciples and said, "All right, let's go back to Cloud Sky Peak." As soon as he finished speaking, Yizan flew into the sky and headed toward Cloud Sky Peak. Zhu Guoyu held Xiangyun in her arms and pulled Feng Xian along as they followed him. When she saw herself flying in the sky, Xiangyun became excited. "Wow, I can actually fly. Whoa, that little bird is so close to me." While flying, Xiangyun kept shouting and yelling. She was extremely curious about these things. Zhu Guoyu could not help but smile. This little girl was too funny and adorable. The white crane flying nearby also heard Xiangyun's shouts and seemingly replied in an unpleasant tone. It was as if it was saying, "I'm not a little bird, you're the little bird. This little bird actually dares to shout at me." After noticing the white crane's gaze, Xiangyun felt a little peeved. She was the overlord of the god-slaying village, yet she was now being provoked by some random little bird. She immediately raised her head to look at Zhu Guoyu and said, "Big sister, go closer. I have to give it a good beating. Let's see if it still dares to shout at me in the future." As she spoke, she clenched her little fist and waved it continuously, as if she would not relent until she beat it up. Zhu Guoyu was already sweating. When this little girl returned to Cloud Sky Peak, would she not turn the entire Great Wilderness Divine Sect upside down? 604 Are they swollen? Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So Junior sister, this little bird is someone else's pet. Don't hit it. When we get back to Cloud Sky Peak, I'll take you somewhere to catch a unicorn to play with, okay? Zhu Guoyu said patiently. She thought of the gentle unicorns at the rear area of Cloud Sky Peak and tried to appease her. Unicorn. What is that? As she muttered to herself, Xiangyun let her imagination run wild. In her mind, these unicorns were just little birds with horns. However, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that this image was really too ugly, and her small head kept shaking. Seeing this, Zhu Guoyu tried to describe them to her. Unicorns actually have a unique glow on their bodies, and they are really beautiful. Each one of them has wings, so you can ride them and fly in the sky. Alright, then we'll go back and catch the unicorn, I want to ride it. As they conversed, they flew and time flew, and the 4 of them eventually reached the Great Wilderness Divine Sect. Along the way to Cloud Sky Peak, they also met people who had returned from the Immortal Divine Sect. After seeing that Yizan and the others had returned, Yuelin came over, smiling. "Junior brother Yi, didn't you say you wanted to take your disciples out to see the world? Why did you return so quickly?" Yuelin asked in confusion. When she noticed Xiangyun, she was even more stunned. Why did he bring back a little girl? Could it be that Yizan had already married and had children before he became a cultivator? Thinking this, she asked somewhat hesitantly, "This little girl is?" Hearing this, Yizan turned around and looked at Xiangyun, who was already playing with some of the female cultivators from Water Sky Peak. These girls were amused by the little girl, and were all laughing their hearts out. Seeing this scene, Yizan did not know what to say. He had brought back a special disciple. Yizan then smiled and said, "We met this little girl on the way. She's all alone and has no family, so I brought her back and accepted her as my disciple." After hearing this, Yuelin instantly felt as if a huge burden had been lifted off her chest. So it was just a disciple. She was indeed too anxious. However, it was only natural. After all, when Yizan first entered the Great Wilderness Divine Sect, he was already of marriageable age. If he really had a wife in the mortal world and had a daughter, it would not be unusual at all. So she's junior brother Yi's newest disciple. This little girl is so quick-witted and cute. Junior brother, why don't you let me be her teacher? Hearing this, Yizan laughed out loud and replied, "That's not impossible, but you'll have to trade your chief disciple for her." Yuelin kicked Yizan. He was still thinking about her chief disciple. "This won't do. I have to tell my disciple not to get too close to Yizan when I get back. He is too conniving." Cough, cough. "Junior brother Yi, if there's nothing else, I'll head back first." Yuelin immediately turned to leave with her disciples after saying this, afraid that Yizan would take her away. At this moment, the girls from Cloud Sky Peak had surrounded Xiangyun and were constantly pinching her smooth and tender face. Yin was not happy about being pinched here and there. She put her hands on her waist and said, enough, enough. You can't pinch me anymore. If you do, I will explode. Oh my god, she's so cute. After hearing Shang Yun's words, the girls became even more excited and pinched even harder. Shang Yun immediately felt uncomfortable. However, at this moment, she spotted Yuelin walking over and her brain froze. Then, she turned to look at the young ladies surrounding her. She tugged at Zhu Yueyu's arm. Big sister, why are these girls so swollen? Did they get beaten up? Why are their chests so fat? Just look at their chests. Hearing this, Zhu Yueyu's face darkened and she rubbed Shang Yun's head. This little girl was too straightforward, saying everything she thought of immediately. So many girls in the Great Wilderness Divine Sect wanted to have a body like Yuelin's. This little girl was really insensible. Shang Yun's head hurt from the rubbing, and she instantly shouted in pain. Tears were already welling up in her eyes, and she could not understand why the big sister was hurting her. However, before her tears fell, she looked at Zhu Yueyu again, her eyes shining as she spoke, heavens. It turns out that warm big sister is quite swollen too. Warm big sister, tell me quickly, which brat beat you up like this? When I get stronger, I'll definitely help you take care of him. Hearing this, Zhu Yueyu was rendered speechless. However, she did not know how to explain it to her. Seeing this, Feng Xian quickly moved closer to Shang Yun and said very patiently, Junior sister, the one you saw just now was teacher's senior sister. You can't address her casually. We usually call her Chief Yuelin or Martial Aunt Yuelin. You can also call her that. Also, this isn't fat or swollen from being beaten. It just grows like this. You're still young and might not know these things, but when you get older, you'll also become like this. Upon hearing this, Shang Yun started crying. She would become swollen there too. I don't want to become like this. It's too inconvenient to fight. 605A Brand New Cloud Sky Peak. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So if I lose a fight because of this in the future, won't it be very embarrassing? Woo woo woo. Hearing Shang Yun's sobs, Feng Xian smiled and comforted her. Junior sister, you're still young, so you won't understand the benefits of this. Although you don't want it now, many people who want to become like this can only think about it. After hearing this, Shang Yun became even more confused. She could not figure out the logic behind this no matter how much she thought about it. Was there any benefit to being swollen? It did not look good, and it was inconvenient for fighting. How annoying. Yuelin once again appeared by Shang Yun's side. She gently rubbed her head and said, Little girl, what should I call you? My name is Shang Yun, but the old man calls me. Before she could finish, Zhu Yueyu quickly covered her mouth. She looked at Yuelin awkwardly and said, Chief Yuelin, actually, her name is only Shang Yun. The other one is just a joke. If she were to say the words, Little Tigress, everyone would probably call her that in the future. After all, this little girl was indeed quite fierce. When she heard this, Yuelin also laughed and muttered to herself, Shang Yun, it's quite a nice name. After saying that, Yuelin ruffled her hair again and examined Shang Yun's talent. A moment later, she frowned. What was going on? Why can't I see anything? Yuelin was dumbfounded and felt extremely puzzled. There seemed to be a strong power wrapped around Shang Yun's body, making it impossible for others to probe her. Then, she remembered that this little girl was Yizan's disciple, so her level of talent had to be quite good. The reason why he had concealed this little girl's talent was probably to prevent other people with bad intentions from targeting her. Isn't she a little too strong? Even though Shang Yun was very young, she was not weak at all. She managed to push away her hand immediately. Yuelin was shocked, and realized that this little girl's strength was probably innate. Junior brother Yi, I really have to congratulate you. You've actually obtained another disciple with unparalleled talent. She'll definitely become an influential figure in the future. Yuelin looked at Yizan with a smile. Although Yizan still looked calm and composed, he was inwardly overjoyed. What Yuelin did not know was that Shang Yun's level of talent would likely be enough for her to reach the sealed immortal realm. After a moment, Yizan replied indifferently, cough, cough. Senior sister Yuelin, don't tease me anymore. This disciple of mine does indeed have some talent, but that's nothing at all. Compared to your disciples, she's still a bit lacking. There's not much I can teach her. It's up to her to decide what she can achieve in the future. Although Yizan said so, he still looked a little smug. Yuelin glared at Yizan. How dare he say that her own disciples were talented? Although she had many disciples, in terms of quality, none of them could compare to Yi Zhan's 3 disciples. He was obviously humble bragging. Was he trying to piss her off? Let's go back. This was simply bullying. Yuelin then wanted to leave with the disciples of Water Sky Peak. However, the girls from the Water Sky Peak were a little unwilling. After all, this little girl was really cute, and they had not finished having fun with her yet. Moreover, this little girl was straightforward. No matter what she said, she would say whatever was on her mind and would not be polite to anyone. Even if they kept pinching her little face, this little girl's face was not red at all. That being said, she was threatening to kick them if they did not stop, so they eventually acquiesced and left with Yuelin. After everyone had left, Yi Zhan looked at his disciples and said, "All right, let's go back to Cloud Sky Peak." With that, the 4 of them flew over to Cloud Sky Peak. Yi Zhan almost couldn't recognize the peak when he arrived at the periphery of Cloud Sky Peak. Was this still the same Cloud Sky Peak? Thanks to the efforts of the Su family, the northern part of Cloud Sky Peak had been completely transformed. The few dilapidated small residences had been transformed into new larger residences, and even a few extra buildings around. After seeing this, Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian were also shocked. "This is our Cloud Sky Peak now," Zhu Yuyu exclaimed in surprise. At the same time, one of the Su family's managers came over hurriedly. "Senior Yi Zhan, you've finally returned." Looking at Yi Zhan, the manager's face immediately brightened. "I've been waiting at Cloud Sky Peak for more than 10 days. Hearing this, Yi Zhan was stunned. Some time ago, the head of the Su family brought our people over to work on the peak. The manager continued, "We completed the work 10 days ago. However, because Senior Yi Zhan had not returned for a long time, most of the people have already rushed back. I've been tasked with staying behind to update you." "Ah, I remember now," Yi Zhan said, patting his thigh. He had been so busy recently that he almost forgot about this matter. "Thanks for going through all this trouble. I'll ask my disciple to make some dishes to go with wine and we can have a few drinks together," Yi Zhan said with a smile. However, the manager waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about it, Senior Yi Zhan. I would gladly accept, but I also have to rush back to the clan to deal with other matters, so I won't disturb you any longer." Hearing that he was indeed going to attend to other matters, Yi Zhan did not stop him and watched him leave. After his figure disappeared, Yi Zhan, accompanied by his 3 disciples, began to look around the revitalized Cloud Sky Peak. In general, it gave people a good feeling. "Haha, very good. It's quite to my liking," Yi Zhan thought to himself. 606 Purple Wind Chime. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. At the center of the new palace on Cloud Sky Peak, there was a new hall called the Cloud Sky Hall. Inside, there was also a martial arts arena. It was a very spectacular sight. However, because there were very few people on Cloud Sky Peak, the arena was not particularly big. On the left of the Cloud Sky Palace, there was a new garden filled with all kinds of flowers and plants. There was even a rockery, as well as flowing streams. It was like entering a fairyland. In the innermost part of the garden, there were a few wooden pavilions. When one was tired from cultivating, one could sit in there and drink tea. It was really very pleasant. Yi Zhan was very satisfied after touring the area. He turned around and said to his disciples, "All right, which of these houses do you like? You can move into any one of them." After hearing this, Zhu Yuyu and the other 2 immediately started choosing. Shang Yun was shocked. She felt like she liked every house she saw. "Hee, this house is awesome. I'll choose this one." "No, that one is nice too. I want it too." It was the first time she had seen such beautiful wooden houses. She had lived in a thatched village hut with her parents, and after the berserk beast's attacks, she had lived with the old man in the ruined temple. Therefore, seeing these fancy wooden houses excited her to no end. She happily strolled around the garden. However, Feng Xian walked over after Shang Yun had finally finished choosing her wooden house. "Junior sister, are you afraid of sleeping alone at night? Do you want to sleep together with me?" Upon hearing this, Shang Yun's eyes widened. She raised her little head and said, "I don't. I'm a big girl now. No matter how scared I am at night, I have to sleep by myself." "That's fine too. My house is right next to yours. If you encounter any difficulties, you can come and look for me." Feng Xian was a little disappointed, but she did not take it to heart. Even though this little girl was only 6 years old, she was very independent and headstrong. However, After thinking about it carefully, it was not strange. After all, Xiangyun had been living and surviving by herself after she lost her family. All right, go and pack your things. You can move them here later. After he had chosen his house, Yizan smiled and instructed. Zhu Yueyu's house was located in a quieter area. Feng Xian's house was right next to Xiangyun's, as she wanted to take care of her. As for Yizan, he did not choose a wooden house. He simply chose to stay in the Cloud Sky Palace itself. On the way back to their original residences, Yizan suddenly noticed a purple wind chime. He turned around and asked his disciples, "Do you know who planted this tree and what it means?" Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian looked at each other. They were both interested in this too. The purple wind chime seemed out of place with the other trees on Cloud Sky Peak. Only one was planted in the center. From the moment they returned to Cloud Sky Peak, they had been curious about this matter. Why would a purple wind chime be planted here? Seeing that his two disciples did not know anything, Yizan turned his gaze to Xiangyun and asked gently, "Little Yun, do you know?" Xiangyun shook her head vigorously and said, "I'm not sure." Yizan smiled and said, "This purple wind bell was planted by my teacher." After hearing this, Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian were shocked. They really did not expect that this ordinary purple wind chime had actually been planted by their grandmaster. Yizan then continued, "Back then, when the winter snow had just melted, I was accepted into Cloud Sky Peak. Actually, my teacher cared a lot about me, but never told me directly. Instead, he planted this tree for me, hoping that I can grow like this purple wind chime. Now, several years have passed, and I've indeed been growing and becoming stronger, just as he said." At this moment, Yizan felt a little melancholic. Could it be that Tianzan had never cared about him? No, he had always been silently concerned about Yizan, and his concern for Yizan was encapsulated in this purple wind chime. Tianzan was the kind of person who could not express himself well with words. Furthermore, he was focused on cultivation, so he did not communicate much with Yizan. For this reason, he planted this purple wind chime in the residence on Cloud Sky Peak. My teacher once told me that when the flowers bloomed, he would rush back and meet me. It's been so long, and I've grown from a young man to a pillar of support of the sect, but he hasn't returned. At this moment, Yizan sighed when he saw the purple wind chime. Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian also felt his sadness. Even though they had never seen their grandmaster's face, they could imagine the scene after hearing what Yizan had just said. "Teacher." Zhu Yueyu was already on the verge of crying. She walked over to Yizan's side silently and held his arm, remaining silent. Yizan also turned around to look at his disciple, and the corners of his mouth curved up slightly. Looking at the purple wind chime, Yizan continued, "Back then, my teacher helped me plant this tree, hoping that I would be able to grow healthily. His wish has been fulfilled, and now it's my turn. Let me help you plant a tree. I hope that you can grow healthily and become strong in the future." After hearing this, Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian's hearts were deeply touched. Their teacher's care and emotions for them would be encapsulated in this tree. 607 Magic Hammer. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After hearing that Yizan was going to plant a tree for them, Zhu Yueyu said in a trembling voice, "Teacher, you don't have to worry. We'll work hard on out cultivation and make your wish come true." Feng Xian hurriedly said, "We'll definitely fulfill teacher's expectations of us. We'll also become the pillars of support for Cloud Sky Peak in the future." Xiangyun was in a daze and did not understand what they were talking about, but she could clearly sense the melancholic mood. She pulled on Yizan's sleeve and asked, "Teacher, why hasn't your teacher returned to look for you? Could it be that he doesn't know that you're still waiting here?" A child's thoughts were always naive. She probably had not realized what death was. After thinking for a moment, Yizan replied, "How should I say this? My teacher is also asleep. He's also quite lazy and won't wake up." After hearing this, Xiangyun came to a sudden realization and said, "So that's how it is. Just like my family and that old man, they're all asleep." Yes. At this moment, the little girl said, "Your teacher is also obsessed with sleeping, and he's been sleeping for so long. He's much lazier than that old man." After saying this, Xiangyun suddenly looked at Yizan and asked weakly, "Teacher, will you sleep like this too?" FCK. This disciple of his was really hard to handle. Yizan was dumbfounded and did not know how to reply. Zhu Yueyu and Feng Xian were also laughing out loud. They were quite amused to see their teacher at a loss like this. Their junior sister was truly special and unique. I'm still young, so I won't need to sleep for a long time, Yizan said as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Zhu Yuyu smiled and walked over to Shang Yun's side. She said patiently, "Junior sister, in the future, you can't say such things, okay? It's impolite. You can't hope for others to sleep forever, alright?" "Okay," Shang Yun replied and nodded, but she still did not understand why it was impolite. At this moment, Yi Zan took out a magic hammer and smashed it into the ground after signaling everyone to step back. With a loud boom, the entire purple wind chime tree was uprooted, but thanks to Yi Zan's spiritual power, the tree did not suffer any damage. Yi Zan was thinking of transplanting it to their new residence. When she saw the magic hammer Yi Zan had taken out, Shang Yun's eyes widened. She quietly went over to Yi Zan's side and asked softly, "Teacher, if you fall asleep in the future, can you give this hammer to me?" Yi Zan's face darkened, not knowing what to say. The hammer he was holding was of the lowest quality and was not a treasure at all. When he saw that his disciple liked it so much, he felt very helpless. However, her words were also very venomous, even if they were out of ignorance. "You know what? I'll give it to you now. Try and hold it." After saying that, Yi Zan gave the magic hammer to her without hesitation. Seeing this, she took the hammer excitedly. However, the hammer was too heavy, and she fell to the ground with the hammer in her hand. She even ate a mouthful of mud, which was a very funny scene. Blarg. After retching a few times, Shang Yun stood up in a huff. She grabbed the hammer that was much taller than her and tried to lift it. Seeing that even Shang Yun was at a loss, Feng Xian could not help but burst out laughing. Even the cold Zhu Yuyu did the same. It seemed that the atmosphere at Cloud Sky Peak had improved a lot after the appearance of this little girl. This was a good sign. After standing up, Shang Yun first familiarized herself with the weight of the magic hammer before she shouted, "I don't believe that there's a hammer that I can't lift." She exerted all of the strength in her body and instantly raised the magic hammer high up and hurled it forward. It hit a big rock in front of her, making a loud bang, and then the rock shattered into smaller pieces. Yi Zan was shocked to see this. It had to be understood that this little girl had not set foot on the path of cultivation. Even an average cultivator at the peak of the Mystic Meridian realm would not be able to match Shang Yun's strength. If she were to start cultivating, what level would her strength reach? Yi Zan's curiosity was piqued. This little girl was truly astonishingly talented. He had to teach her well. When she grew up, with her personality, who would dare to provoke her? If there were really other small characters who came to provoke them, then he would just unleash her upon them. No matter who it was, she would smash them with her hammer. The image he envisioned looked pretty cool. On the other side, Shang Yun's mouth was wide open in shock when she saw how easily she smashed the huge rock. "Oh my god, I'm so strong." She really did not expect that this ordinary-looking hammer would be so strong. With this magic hammer, she would be able to beat up whoever she did not like in the future. Thinking this, her heart burst with joy. She pounced on Yi Zan and rubbed her face on his leg. "Teacher, you're the best. I really like this hammer. He he he. From now on, I'll hammer whoever makes me unhappy." She was already grinning from ear to ear, and even laughing somewhat evilly. 608. I'll plant one at random. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Seeing Shang Yun's evil laugh, Yi Zan trembled subconsciously, feeling that something was wrong. This little girl was not afraid of anyone, and she liked to fight. With this hammer, she would be even more arrogant. Would she cause him any trouble? There should not be any big problems, right? Yi Zan could only think this way to himself. After all, this little girl was still young, so she should not be able to cause any big problems. He was already considered a peerless expert now, and there were very few situations that could cause him trouble. Ding! As you have given a magic hammer to your disciple, you have received a 10,000x critical reward. After hearing this notification, Yi Zan was stunned, but then he laughed. He had obtained this hammer from Ouyang Feng. He had wanted to give it to his two disciples to get a better one. However, his two disciples did not like this hammer, so he failed to give it away. In the end, his third disciple loved the hammer so much that she would not let go of it. Yi Zan was also very happy at this time. From now on, those heavy magic weapons would no longer be abandoned in a corner of his storage space. If he gave them to Shang Yun, she would definitely like them. Ding! Congratulations! The host has obtained a heaven-grade magical treasure, Thunderbolt Hammer. Yi Zan did not know what to say when he saw the hammer that looked very much like a certain hammer from his previous world. What was going on? Forget it, forget it. No matter what, it's still a heaven-grade magic artifact, Yizan said to himself, not knowing how powerful the hammer was. As long as he could use this thunder hammer to unleash bolts of lightning, he could even draw upon heavenly lightning to attack the enemy. Its weight was terrifying too. Although the hammer did not look big, it weighed 1 million jin. Yizan did not plan on using the thunderbolt hammer himself, so he would leave it aside until Xiangyun was strong enough to use it. As for how and what she would use it for, he threw such concerns to the back of his mind. Xiangyun had boundless strength, and he was very optimistic about this disciple, even though this little disciple wanted him to sleep forever. After swinging it for a while, Xiangyun got used to the weight of the hammer. Even her strength seemed to have increased a little. Seeing this, Yizan was very surprised. He looked at them and ordered, "Let's stop here for now. All of you, go pack your things and move into your new houses." All right, Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian agreed. However, Xiangyun had nothing to pack, so Yizan brought her along with him. After tidying up his belongings, Yizan brought her to his teacher's memorial tablet and offered incense to him. She was now officially a disciple of Cloud Sky Peak. After Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian tidied up their items, they moved into their new dwellings and then went over to Yizan. Yizan looked at his 3 disciples and nodded. "Since you're all here, let's begin." After saying that, Yizan lit 3 more incense sticks on the memorial tablets of the past chiefs of Cloud Sky Peak and said, "Ancestors, I'm the 18th chief of Cloud Sky Peak, Yizan. The new Cloud Sky Hall has been completed. Thus, I want to move this room to the new hall. Today, I have brought Zhu Yuyu, Feng Xian, and Xiangyun to offer incense to you and to let you know. If I have disturbed you, I hope you will not blame me." After the 3 incense sticks were lit, Yizan looked up at the sky and said, "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, Yizan used his spiritual power to collect all of the memorial tablets. He also took the purple wind chime tree outside and flew to their new residence. From this day on, Cloud Sky Peak's old courtyard, which had been around for a long time, would be relieved of its duty. The new residence was built on higher ground with better feng shui, which bode well for Cloud Sky Peak's future. It was a good start. After returning to the Cloud Sky Palace, Yizan placed the memorial tablets of all the previous grandmasters and once again lit incense for them. After all this was done, Yizan felt a lot more relaxed. Then, he went to the garden and planted the purple wind chime in the most eye-catching position. Yizan turned around to look at his 3 disciples and said, "It's done. This purple wind chime was planted by my teacher for me. It contains his expectations for me. And today, I'm going to plant a tree for you 3. I hope that you can grow up just like this tree, healthy and strong." Hearing this, Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian nodded seriously. Even though Xiangyun did not understand what this meant, she decided that it was wise to follow her senior sisters, so she quickly nodded. When they learned that Yizan was going to plant a tree for them, Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian were very curious, and started to discuss in soft voices. "What kind of tree do you think our teacher will plant for us? It should also be a purple wind chime, right?" However, Zhu Yuyu did not think so. She said, "That's not possible. Our teacher doesn't usually do things according to the rules. The purple wind chime was planted for him, so there's no way he will copy Grandmaster Tianzan and use the same tree. Could it be a spiritual plant?" After the 2 of them discussed for a while, they could barely restrain their curiosity. Therefore, Feng Xian straightforwardly asked, "Teacher, what kind of tree do you want to plant for us?" After Taizan had picked out a location to plant the tree, he replied with a smile, "It's no big deal. I'm just planting them randomly. No matter what kind of tree it is, the most important thing is what it represents." After hearing this, the 2 of them nodded their heads. No matter what kind of tree their teacher planted for them, they would definitely take good care of it and make it grow into a towering tree. After all, this tree would contain his expectations for them. Yizan then took out the water cloud fruit sapling from his storage space. Oh my god. At first, the 2 of them had thought that it was just an ordinary tree. However, after seeing the sapling of the water cloud fruit tree, they were shocked. 609 Holy Land for Cultivation Part 1. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So It emitted extremely dense spiritual energy once it appeared, which swept out and covered Cloud Sky Peak. The 2 of them even felt their cultivation improving as they absorbed it. This is what teacher meant by planting one randomly. Feng Xian's mouth was wide open, and Zhu Yuyu was very surprised as well. They had underestimated their teacher's treasury again. All of a sudden, Zhu Yuyu felt refreshed. She was surprised to find that her cultivation had improved from the middle stage of the Void Realm to the peak state of the Void Realm. Feng Xian also had the same feeling. As long as she went into closed-door cultivation for a while, she would definitely be able to break through. Heavens, this is too unimaginable. I only absorbed some spiritual energy, yet my cultivation has already improved by this much. Zhu Yuyu mumbled to herself. Her face was full of shock. Under the influence of this dense spiritual energy, the entire garden became shrouded in a thick fog, making it seem mysterious. Furthermore, a day of cultivating in this garden was probably better than normal cultivation elsewhere for 10 days. The water cloud fruit tree was a priceless heavenly treasure. The spiritual energy contained within it even forcibly raised the spiritual energy density in the entire cloud sky peak to a higher level, turning it into a holy land for cultivation. Even Yi Zan was surprised. He had never expected that this water cloud fruit tree would actually be so powerful. Yi Zan then planted the water cloud fruit tree. At this moment, even more intense spiritual energy fluctuations spread out, which then formed a spiritual energy waterspout in the sky, sucking in all of the spiritual energy nearby. Cloud Sky Peak seemed to have come alive. All kinds of flowers, plants, and trees grew rapidly. This attracted the attention of everyone in the Great Wilderness Divine Sect. What's happening at Cloud Sky Peak? How could such a phenomenon suddenly appear? They looked at the huge waterspout in the sky in amazement, and quickly started moving toward Cloud Sky Peak. When Ao Lei sensed the phenomenon, he instantly stood up. His eyes were fixed on Cloud Sky Peak, muttering, "The spiritual energy is so strong. Did someone on Cloud Sky Peak break through?" This strange phenomenon was very similar to when he had broken through to the Supreme Realm. In fact, it even seemed to be more intense. On Water Sky Peak, Yuelin had just planted the Gilead gold vine seedling that Yizan had given her. Rich spiritual energy fluctuations spread out. Seeing this, Tulin was also extremely happy. It was time for her to show off. While she was still thinking about this, even more astonishing spiritual energy fluctuations suddenly spread out, shocking her. What on earth happened? Yuelin looked at Cloud Sky Peak in a daze. Why were they stealing her spotlight? Li Hanyi and the rest looked at Cloud Sky Peak in confusion and shock. Teacher, could it be that Martial Uncle Yi is up to something again? Upon hearing this, Yuelin pouted and said helplessly, "I'm not sure. Let's go over and take a look." After saying that, Yuelin turned around and looked at her Gilead gold vine sapling, and felt that it was slightly lacking. Even though this Gilead gold vine seedling was a very rare existence, it had not produced any strange phenomena like the water cloud fruit tree. If Yuelin had known in advance that Yizan would plant the water cloud fruit tree today, she would have picked another day to plant the Gilead gold vine sapling no matter what. Everyone was rushing toward Cloud Sky Peak to join in the fun, and soon, it was filled with people. After experiencing the spiritual energy released by the water cloud fruit tree from such a close distance, coupled with the appearance of the garden filled with spiritual mist, they felt as if they had arrived in paradise. Heavens! Cultivating here is amazing. Unbelievable. It feels like I'm in a sea of spiritual energy. If I could cultivate here, I would be able to advance by leaps and bounds. After noticing the changes on Cloud Sky Peak, many disciples began to regret not joining Cloud Sky Peak in the past when it was weak. Once the sapling of the water cloud fruit tree was successfully planted, it filled Cloud Sky Peak with vitality. Why are there suddenly so many people here? Shang Yun was looking around in a daze. First sister, second sister, why are they looking at us like that? Shang Yun asked in confusion when she noticed the yearning in their eyes. Hearing this, Zhu Yuyu also turned around and scanned the crowd. Then, she smiled and replied, "These people are yearning for the water cloud fruit tree that teacher just planted." So that's how it is. Is the tree that teacher just planted very amazing? Shang Yun tilted her head and asked again. 610 Holy Land for Cultivation Part 2. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So that's for sure. This is one of the rarest treasures in the mystic world. As long as this tree bears water cloud fruits and can be picked, you can eat one and become even more powerful. Shang Yun's eyes seemed to light up when she heard Zhu Yuyu's words. Cold sister, you're not lying to me, right? If she became more powerful, she would be able to defeat all the children in her generation. This was a temptation that exceeded a pile of potatoes for her. Feng Xian also continued, "Of course she's not lying to you. You must guard this tree well, all right. Otherwise, if it's destroyed by others, you won't be able to eat its fruits, and you won't be as powerful. Upon hearing this, Shang Yun instantly made a solemn vow. All right, first and second sister, you can rest assured and leave the protection of this tree to me. If anyone dares to scheme against this tree, I'll flatten them with my hammer. Looking at her clenched small fists and serious expression, Feng Xian felt a little guilty. Was she trying to deceive the child? Zhu Yuyu was also speechless and did not know what to say. At this moment, a few figures flashed over. They were Aolei and the other chiefs. Aolei had only just arrived, but had already sensed the presence of the water cloud fruit tree planted in the garden. His pupils shrank. Could it be, is that the water cloud fruit tree that only exists in legends? At this time, Gao Shun similarly moved closer to take a look. When he noticed the water cloud fruit tree, his expression was exactly the same as Aolei's. Unbelievable. Yi Zan actually obtained a water cloud fruit tree sapling, Gao Shun muttered as he pinched his own arm in disbelief. Only after feeling the pain did he believe what he was seeing. This kid never seemed to be short of treasures. Junior brother Yi, you've made such a big commotion without saying anything. You've given us quite the fright, Aolei said with a face full of smiles. The entire cloud sky peak was filled with vitality, and it looked like a cultivation holy land. I truly didn't expect to ever see a water cloud fruit tree in person. This is truly an eye-opener for me. Junior brother Yi really has a bevy of treasure. I really can't help but admire you. Congratulations. From this moment on, the cultivation levels of Cloud Sky Peak disciples will advance by leaps and bounds thanks to this tree. Yi Zan, on the other hand, touched the leaves of the water cloud fruit tree pensively. He was overjoyed, but his expression was still very calm. Don't tease me like this, he said indifferently. This isn't a rare treasure. I just want to copy what teacher Tian Zan did for me. This tree is a reminder to the disciples of Cloud Sky Peak that they must cultivate hard and grow strong like this tree. Ahem, I just randomly planted it. It's no big deal. After hearing this, everyone was dumbfounded. Ah. Randomly planted it. Gao Shun cursed inwardly, this brat is humble bragging again. Thinking back to Yi Zan's words, Gao Shun realized that Yi Zan's manner of showing off was unique, and even decided to adopt it for himself in the future. Showing off like this probably felt amazing, right? I'll be reaching the Supreme Realm soon, so I'll have to practice hard when I get back, hee hee. From this moment on, Cloud Sky Peak had been completely transformed. It was no longer a desolate, dilapidated peak. Instead, it had become a unique holy land for cultivation. This was probably the place where one could cultivate the fastest within the entire Great Wilderness Divine Sect. After all, the waterspout in the sky had already sucked in all of the nearby spiritual energy. If I could stay in this place and cultivate, that would be awesome, some of the disciples said emotionally. They had already noticed that there were a few small houses in the garden, and wished they could stay there. However, as they were not from Cloud Sky Peak, it was impossible for them to stay in this place. By the way, if I were to try and join Cloud Sky Peak now, do you think it would be too late? One of the disciples asked this without any scruples. As soon as he finished speaking, he attracted the disdainful eyes of the others. I suggest you stop daydreaming. Do you think that you're a peerless genius who can attract Marshal Uncle Yi's attention? Just as everyone was in the middle of an intense discussion, Yuelin, who was wearing a pink dress, walked over with the disciples of Water Sky Peak in tow. When she saw the water cloud fruit tree planted in the courtyard, her jaw dropped. This is a water cloud fruit tree. Yuelin was stunned. She turned around and asked Yi Zan, Junior brother Yi, where did you find this water cloud fruit tree? She could not figure it out no matter how hard she racked her brains. She remembered that Yi Zan had only obtained the Gilead gold vine seedling in the ancient tomb, which was now with her. How did he manage to find something as rare as the water cloud fruit tree? 611 Holy Land for Cultivation Part 3. Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Could it be that Yi Zan had given her the Gilead gold vine sapling without hesitation back then because he had this tree? Yuelin was suspicious, but Yi Zan's answer dispelled her concerns. I obtained this water cloud fruit tree from the true ancient tomb. I spent a lot of effort excavating it. Oh, no wonder, Yuelin said, as if she had suddenly realized something. Yi Zan had given her the Gilead gold vine sapling before he entered the gate to the true ancient tomb. It all made sense then. After all, she could not enter the true ancient tomb due to her lacking cultivation level at the time. Of course, Yi Zan was just making up an excuse. If Yuelin were to find out that the water cloud fruit tree sapling was the system's reward due to him having given her the Gilead gold vine sapling, she would probably be angry. What happened to the sweet love she had believed in? Did he just want to use her for treasures? She would probably be heartbroken. Completely unaware of this, Yuelin was thinking, no matter what, I'm still very important to Junior Brother Yi. Congratulations, Junior Brother Yi. With the help of this tree, everyone on Cloud Sky Peak will be able to advance very quickly. Perhaps when the fruits are ready to be picked, you might even be able to break through and reach the sealed immortal realm, Yuelin said with a face full of smiles. However, she was feeling a little sad in her heart. Even though she had already reached the peak of the Mystic Lord realm, the gap between her and Yizan was getting bigger and bigger. At this rate, it would not take long before she was left in the dust. Would she really have a chance then? At this moment, Yuelin felt very bitter. However, when she recalled the Gilead gold vine seedling, her heart was filled with hope again. She would not be able to catch up to his cultivation level, but with the seedling, she would not remain too far behind. The sealed immortal realm is still a little far away for me, Yizan replied cordially. Even though this water cloud fruit was amazing, it would take too long to ripen. With the help of the system, Yizan probably would not need that long to break through to the sealed immortal realm. It was precisely for this reason that Yizan had planted it for his disciples, as they would be the ones benefiting. Furthermore, he had obtained plenty of resources from the destruction of the immortal divine sect, and would have no problem reaching the peak of the ancient realm after refining them. Yizan had originally planned to cultivate and break through to the ancient realm as soon as he returned to Cloud Sky Peak. However, for other reasons, and because the gathering was about to commence, this matter was put on hold. Before going to the gathering, Yizan's main objective was to help Xiangyun lay a solid cultivation foundation. Yizan turned around and looked at the water cloud fruit tree in the middle of the garden again, his heart filled with excitement. With the help of this tree, from now on, Cloud Sky Peak would be the best place to cultivate. In addition, his disciples' cultivation speed would also be much faster than the others. Yizan inadvertently touched the trunk of the water cloud fruit tree again, causing small green buds to instantly emerge. When this happened, a wave of even denser spiritual energy swept out. FCK. All of the cultivators present were once again shocked. With a series of muffled sounds, some of the cultivators actually broke through. Whoa, I've actually reached the materialization realm, ha ha ha. I've gotten stronger. After hearing this, the people present were even more shocked. Then, everyone instantly quieted down and sat cross-legged on the spot. They wanted to take advantage of this moment and improve their cultivation. Xiangyun was unhappy when she saw the cultivators sitting on the ground. She tugged at Zhu Yueyu's sleeve and said, "Big sister, our water cloud fruit tree is being exploited by these people. Will it affect our tree?" Zhu Yueyu patted her head and consoled her, "It's fine. This time is special. A spiritual energy wave like this will happen fairly often in the future, so you don't need to worry." "That's good," Xiangyun nodded and replied. Since Cold Sister said that it would not affect the tree, she would not chase these people away. At this moment, Hua Rufeng hurriedly came to Ao Lei's side and whispered something into the latter's ears. After hearing Hua Rufeng's words, Ao Lei's face instantly darkened. Seeing that the disciples were all focused on cultivation, he quietly left. Gao Shun also noticed this, and his expression froze, wondering what exactly had happened to make Ao Lei's expression become so ugly. On the other side, Yizan was still transferring spiritual power to the water cloud fruit tree to help it grow. Because the fruit tree had just been transplanted, it still needed some time to recover, which was why Yizan was so careful in taking care of it. After helping the water cloud fruit tree grow new roots, Yizan retracted his spiritual power, and he sighed with relief. This water cloud fruit tree seems to have a lot of growth requirements in terms of geography and nutrients. It's really not easy to take care of it. I'll have to find some treasures in the future to improve the soil quality here, Yizan thought to himself. After doing all this, Yizan realized that Hua Rufeng was actually right behind him. He was almost startled and asked subconsciously, "Oh, Rufeng, do you have something to tell me?" Hua Rufeng was also stunned at the moment. He had been completely distracted by the water cloud fruit tree. 612 An unreasonable request. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After he came to his senses, Hua Rufeng smiled and said, "Martial Uncle Yi, you're full of surprises." He then took a deep breath of spiritual energy and continued, "This place will become a cultivation paradise." Martial Uncle Yi, I have a presumptuous request, if you don't mind hearing me out. As soon as he finished speaking, Warufeng looked at Yizan's face seriously. If Yizan displayed even the slightest bit of displeasure, he would not say it. Yizan had an inkling about what Warufeng was going to say, so he nodded and said, "All right, just say it." Upon hearing this, Warufeng was overjoyed and quickly said, "Martial Uncle Yi, the Divine Seal Peaks gathering is about to start. As the chief disciple of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect, I feel that I have a huge burden on my shoulders. If I'm no match for others at the gathering, I'm afraid it will embarrass the sect. As such, before the gathering, can I stay here and cultivate for a while?" With that, Warufeng looked at Yizan. He did not want to mention this matter, but the gathering was truly important. At that time, all of the sects in the East Continent would be involved and, if he really lost, the Great Wilderness Divine Sect's reputation would suffer. It was because of this that he had been worried in recent days. Hearing this, Yizan suddenly laughed. He more or less understood the heavy burden on Warufeng's shoulders. After thinking for a moment, Yizan agreed, "It's fine. There are still a few wooden houses in the garden that are unoccupied. You can pick one and stay here." "Whoa, thank you, Martial Uncle Yi." Warufeng was overjoyed to hear Yizan's answer. At that time, when Yizan had not yet become strong, no one came to Cloud Sky Peak at all. Only Warufeng occasionally came to visit. It was because of this that Yizan took great care of Warufeng. In any case, this chief disciple was going to be the future sect master of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect. At the mention of the Divine Seal Peaks gathering, Yizan turned around and looked at his disciples. Yizan was not too worried about Zhuge Yuyu. After all, as the eldest disciple, she had never disappointed him, so there would definitely not be any trouble. As for his second disciple, she was gentle and refined, and her battle strength was also passable. He estimated that it would not take long for her to break through to the Void Realm. However, this little girl. At present, she was still young and had not started to cultivate. In some large sects, before mortal disciples started to cultivate, they would almost always be given a lot of treasures to help them consolidate their cultivation foundation, which would help with their future cultivation progress. Ordinary sects might not have enough treasures to fully accomplish this, but it was different for Yizan. He was a moving treasury, after all. If he could consolidate this little girl's cultivation foundation before the gathering, then she would probably beat up the genius disciples of the other sects. What an interesting sight that would be. Thinking of this, the corners of Yizan's mouth curled up slightly. That settled it. This little girl was usually very happy to fight. As her teacher, he had to help her realize her wish. Nearby, when Warufeng saw the water cloud fruit tree planted in the garden, he felt very puzzled. "Martial Uncle Yi, there's something that I'm a little confused about." Yizan turned around and asked, "What's the matter?" Warufeng came forward and whispered into Yizan's ear, "You've planted the water cloud fruit tree out here in the open. Aren't you afraid that it will suddenly be stolen one day?" After hearing this, some of the nearby people with sharp ears immediately felt their blood run cold. "You little brat, don't mess around. As if that would ever happen. What a joke. Do you think anyone would dare to steal from a Supreme Realm expert? We're not fools. Even if someone did steal it, they wouldn't live long enough to use it." The crowd began to ridicule Warufeng, feeling speechless at his words. As the representative of the younger generation of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect, how could he say such thoughtless words? Warufeng also came to his senses and scratched his head in embarrassment. It was true. Martial Uncle Yi was a Supreme Realm expert. Who would dare to steal his things? Yizan just smiled and said nothing, but took out his god sword. The waves of killing intent it emitted caused everyone present to turn pale. Dark clouds began to form in the sky, as if an evil creature was about to be born. It was too scary. At this time, Yizan calmly held the god sword upright. After looking around, he said indifferently, "Who would dare? There shouldn't be anyone, right? If there really are people that blind, I guess they deserve to be turned into fertilizer to improve the soil quality of this place. Our Cloud Sky Peak has always been very welcoming. No matter who comes, we'll welcome them with open arms, hee hee." After saying that, the corners of Yizan's mouth slowly curved up into an evil smile. 613 Stay for dinner. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So Haha, Martial Uncle Yi really knows how to joke around. Don't worry, Martial Uncle Yi, no one would dare to make a move on the water cloud fruit tree. After hearing Yizan's words, the sect's cultivators hurriedly responded, while asking Yizan to stop teasing them. Yizan's jokes were too scary. At this very moment, there was no one who would dare to plot against the water cloud fruit tree. In fact, they did not even dream about it. After hearing Yizan's words, Hua Rufeng was dumbfounded. This was an open threat. In any case, only someone with a screw loose would do such a thing. Anyone who was normal would probably be thinking about how to please Yizan so as to gain the permission to cultivate here. Yuelin was already grinning from ear to ear. This kid really liked to joke around with people. Yizan turned around and looked at the cultivators around him. Seeing that they had more or less benefited from the earlier waves of spiritual energy, Yizan nodded to himself. There were even many of them who had broken through. After mulling it over for a while, Yizan continued, "Senior brother Gao, do you think what I said is right?" After saying that, Yizan looked at Gao Shun indifferently, causing the latter's expression to change. Cough, cough, you're definitely right, Gao Shun hurriedly said. Seriously, why did Yizan drag him into this? He definitely had no ill intentions toward the water cloud fruit tree. He could not stick around here for too long, lest his intentions be misunderstood. After a calm smile, Gao Shun continued, "Junior brother Yi, I still have something urgent to deal with at home, so I'll head back first." Hee, if Chief Gao Shun didn't mention it, I would have almost forgotten that I also have something that I have to rush back to deal with. I'll take my leave first, Li Dahai said with a smile and quickly followed suit. The other chiefs also left one by one. After the chiefs left, Yizan turned his eyes to the cultivators cultivating here and said with a chilly tone, "Are you guys waiting for me to serve dinner?" Upon hearing this, most of their legs began to tremble. Ahem, Marshal Uncle Yi, you're too kind, but we'll pass on the offer. There's some commotion back at our peaks, so we have to hurry back and deal with it. Goodbye, Marshal Uncle Yi. Within a few short moments, the area had become deserted. At this moment, Shang Yun suddenly piped up, "Senior sister, do you still remember the unicorns you told me about? Why don't you take me there for a look? I want to ride a unicorn." Seeing that this little girl had already started to dance with excitement, Zhu Yuyu was helpless. Why was this little girl still thinking about unicorns? It seemed that the unicorns at the rear of the mountain peak were going to have to suffer a little. She could only pray for them in secret. All right, I'll bring you over there later, okay. Zhu Yuyu tried to calm her down, but it did not work. I can't wait any longer. I want to ride unicorns. Left with no choice, Zhu Yuyu could only look at Yizan for help. Yizan nodded with a smile and said, "It's fine, you can bring her along. Oh right, help her wash up and change her clothes, and don't go too far later." All right, teacher, I'll bring her over now. After agreeing, Zhu Yuyu brought Shang Yun away. Yizan turned to Yuelin and said, "Senior sister Yu, why are you still here? Don't tell me you want to have dinner with me." Yuelin helplessly glared at him and said, "Am I getting in your way? You seem so anxious to chase me away." Yizan smiled and replied, "Actually, it's not like that. Senior sister Yuelin, if you want to stay here, I definitely won't have any objections. After all, there are many new houses here, so it's definitely not a problem for you to live here. Also, if you're really going to stay here for a long time, we can have a good chat when we have time. Cough, cough. Even if you want to, we can even talk about the finer things in life." After hearing this, Yuelin was a little tempted. However, she felt that there was something off about Yizan's smile. Finer things in life. What was that about? Yizan's imagination was already running wild at this time. This senior sister of his was really too innocent. After seriously thinking about it, Yuelin replied in a soft voice, "We can have a discussion, but I'm afraid I'm not free for the time being. How about we schedule it for another day?" 614 Fierce Attack. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Hearing this, Yizan was overjoyed. However, his face remained calm as he said, "That's fine too. Another day then. Also, I've also learned a very powerful technique during this time, and want to discuss it with you. When you have free time, come by, senior sister." Yuelin's eyes lit up when she heard that Yizan had learned a new technique. However, she suddenly recalled how Yizan had teased her before, and she immediately put up her guard. It was better to test him first. After pondering for a moment, Yuelin asked with great interest, "Junior brother, what kind of technique are you talking about? Can you tell me a little bit about it first?" After smiling, Yi Zan stared at Yuelin and calmly said, actually, it's a kind of attack technique. Oh, Yuelin was momentarily stunned. An attack technique. Then it should be quite strong, right? Don't keep me in suspense. Hurry up and tell me. If it's really as awesome as you say, we can discuss it in depth when the opportunity presents itself. Seeing that the fish had taken the bait, Yi Zan smirked. This lady was really innocent. After a moment, Yi Zan spoke in a deliberately profound tone. I've been quite free recently, so I've come up with a set of attack techniques. I've named it chain attack. As long as you use this set of attack techniques, you can continuously output damage in a short period of time. It possesses great offensive capabilities, and allows the user to beat the opponent until they cry out. After hearing these words, Yuelin was even more tempted. It's called a chain attack. It seems to be really strong. Junior brother Yi, is there anything unique about it? Yuelin asked with great interest. Her junior brother was not playing around with her this time, right? Yi Zan smiled even more happily and continued to elaborate. After activating it, it will increase the user's attack speed for a short period of time, catching the enemy off guard and causing them to cry out for mercy. Heavens! Yuelin was surprised. A technique that could increase attack speed was quite rare. At that moment, Yuelin's imagination began to run wild. She was even simulating how she would deal with Yi Zan's attacks if he were to use it. It did seem very tricky to deal with. If she could also learn it, then her combat strength would definitely reach a higher level. Junior brother Yi, hurry up and tell me more. Yuelin said coyly as she directly grabbed Yi Zan's arm and started tugging on it. Haha, this senior sister of mine is really too interesting. I'll never get tired of playing with her. After a moment, Yi Zan said, how should I put it? This technique isn't exactly extremely powerful. After all, it's mainly based on speed, so if one's offensive power is insufficient, or if one encounters an enemy specializing in defense, it would be useless. After thinking for a moment, Yuelin agreed with what Yi Zan had just said. You're right. After a series of rapid outbursts like that, I guess you'd probably be almost out of strength. If you haven't penetrated the enemy's defenses by then it'll probably be like prodding the enemy with a stick. They wouldn't feel anything. Hearing this, Yi Zan was stunned. Who was playing with who now? He forcefully suppressed his smile and said, however, I have a way to deal with this weakness. Ah, can you tell me? Yuelin asked curiously. This technique of mine is called a fierce attack. As long as you launch a fierce attack, you can make your opponent scream again and again, and there is no way to resist. Even if her defense is very strong, under the effect of my fierce attack technique, no matter how strong her defense is, it will be shattered and she will immediately beg for mercy. What? Yuelin was completely stunned. It was so powerful, to the point that even a cultivator specializing in defense would not be able to resist it. Was the fierce attack technique a heaven-grade divine power, or even higher? After thinking for a moment, Yuelin sighed with emotion. The number of techniques Yi Zan knew was really outrageous. After seeing Yuelin's shocked expression, Yi Zan was inwardly giggling. However, he held back his laughter and continued, this fierce attack of mine has to meet the opponent head-on. This way, I can break through the opponent's defense psychologically. And I don't only have this technique, I even have a thrust. Senior sister Yu, let's have an in-depth discussion when you're free. You'll definitely like it. Yi Zan said with a smile, but Yuelin's expression turned a little strange after hearing this. There's also a thrust, Yuelin muttered to herself. At this moment, an untimely voice was heard. Teacher, it's getting late. We have to go back to Water Sky Peak, Li Hanyi reminded her in a soft voice. Yuelin hurriedly nodded while thinking, I'm done for. I forgot about my own important matter. I didn't have time to set up any protective measures for the Gilead gold vine sapling that I just planted. 615 Amazing memory. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. After remembering the Gilead gold vine seedling, Yuelin said, Junior brother Yi, let's talk about this another day. I still have other things to deal with, so I'll be leaving first. After saying that, Yuelin left in a hurry. Yi Zan did not stop her from leaving. He chuckled, wondering how she would react when she sat down and actually processed the contents of their earlier conversation. Thinking this, Yi Zan laughed even louder, and his smile became a little perverted. Teacher, why are you smiling like that? Feng Xian could not help but ask. Nothing had happened, so why was teacher laughing so loudly? Could it be that something happy had happened? Yi Zan rubbed her head and said, Little girl, don't ask about these kinds of things, all right? Just focus on your cultivation. Hearing these words, Feng Xian was very angry. She raised her head and puffed out her chest. I'm not a little girl. All right, go back to your rooms and rest for a while. After all, we've been out traveling for quite some time. Tomorrow, I'll start teaching you all again. After saying this, Yi Zan returned to the Cloud Sky Palace. However, he left the God's Sword near the Water Cloud fruit tree. Its killing intent would deter anyone with ill intentions. Moreover, Yi Zan had already subdued the God's Sword, so if there were any strange movements around the area, he would sense it immediately. The next morning, Zhu Yuyu and the others were already standing in an orderly line in front of the Cloud Sky Palace, waiting for Yi Zan quietly. After some time, Yi Zan finally appeared in front of everyone, yawning. Good morning, teacher. All right. Yi Zan waved his hand and then turned his gaze to Shang Yun. Zhu Yuyu had already helped her to clean up yesterday, and she was now wearing a white dress. She looked like a proper little fairy. However, this little girl was still as mischievous as ever. She was riding a little unicorn and prancing around with a bright smile on her face. Seeing this, Yi Zan did not know what to say, so he could only say, Yuner, did you sleep well last night? Shang Yun scratched the back of her head and replied seriously, of course, teacher. I even dreamed of a lot of roasted potatoes last night. I ate so much that my stomach was stuffed. Yi Zan could only smile awkwardly. Did this little girl only think about roasted potatoes all day? Yuner, you're still young, so you can't start cultivating yet, so today, I will teach you how to train your own body. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan took out a sheepskin scroll from his storage space and handed it to Shang Yun. This is Cloud Sky Peak's body refining technique. You can try it out later. If there's anything you don't understand, I'll explain it to you. Upon hearing this, Shang Yun took the scroll and swept her eyes across it in a flash. Seeing this, Zhu Yuyu was extremely shocked. Heavens, could it be that her talent is so heaven-defying, and she can remember everything after a single glance like me? Zhu Yuyu muttered to herself. Feng Xian's face was also filled with shock, and even Yi Zan was very pleased to see this. He had only turned around for a moment, yet the little girl had already finished reading the sheepskin scroll. Shang Yun sat there obediently and looked at Yi Zan with a smile, looking forward to the techniques he would teach her later. Yi Zan could not help but ask, Yuner, could it be that you've already memorized all the contents? It was looking more and more likely that Shang Yun was the reincarnation of a sealed immortal realm expert. Her memory was probably unparalleled. Third sister, is it true? Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian also chimed in. Even Zhu Yuyu would not be able to memorize all of it from a brief glance, and would need to read through it carefully first. However, after hearing their questions, Shang Yun was stunned. She asked in a serious tone, memorize. I don't understand the contents inside, but since teacher gave it to me, I just casually flipped through it. Hearing this, the surroundings turned dead silent. Black lines seemed to appear on Yi Zan's forehead. Little girl, if you don't understand, you should have said so earlier. I was getting excited for no reason, huh? This little girl was indeed extraordinary, but in the most unexpected ways possible. Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian were also sweating at this moment. It appeared that they had been overthinking things. However, thinking about it closely, it was normal. After all, this little girl was still young. 616 obedient. Her, Arlise reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So She was from an ordinary background, and had even lost her family. As such, there was probably a lot she had not learned, including how to read. What's wrong? Shang Yun asked curiously when she noticed that everyone's gaze had changed. Feng Xian lifted her up and said with a smile on her face, Third sister, from today onward, if you encounter something you don't understand, you have to ask us about it immediately. Shang Yun was a little puzzled by this situation. After all, her teacher had instructed her to take a look at it first. She did not have to understand it now, as her teacher would definitely teach her later. Shang Yun raised her little head high and said, This is what teacher told me to do. He didn't tell me to understand it. I just had to look at it. Seeing her arrogant appearance, Feng Xian could not hold back her laughter. This little girl's words made sense when they were taken literally. Teacher, will you be teaching Shang Yun how to read? Zhu Yuyu wanted to take responsibility for this matter on behalf of her teacher, but Yi Zan rejected her without hesitation. Your cultivation is at a critical juncture right now. Teaching Shang Yun how to read is a small matter. Just leave it to the sect. You should seize this time and cultivate. In the sect, there was also a place to teach people how to read and write, which was where the children who grew up in the sect would be sent when they reached a certain age. This place was called the study hall. These children were almost the same age as Shang Yun, so she could play with them. This was the most suitable place for her. That's fine too, Zhu Yuyu agreed. She squatted down and said to Shang Yun, "Third sister, you have to be serious about studying, okay?" Shang Yun was already confused and asked, "Big sister, what's the study hall for?" "It's a place where people teach you how to read. There are also many children your age there, so you can also find playmates there." Shang Yun's eyes seemed to light up when she heard that. She was so excited that she raised her little hammer up toward the sky. Seeing her like this, Zhu Yuyu had a very bad feeling. She quickly continued, "Third sister, you must not cause trouble or bully the other children at the study hall. Listen to the teacher there, do you understand?" Shang Yun's eyes darted around guiltily, but she still replied obediently, "Okay, senior sister. I understand." Somehow, it did not look very convincing to Zhu Yuyu. With this girl's personality, would she be serious about learning how to read? After much thought, Zhu Yuyu made a decision and said, "Let me keep your hammer for you. I'll give it to you after you've learned how to read." Woo! Shang Yun was displeased, but Zhu Yuyu ignored her pleas and put it away. If she really let Shang Yun go to the study hall with this hammer, she was afraid that the study hall would no longer exist within a few days. Shang Yun's grievance was written all over her face when she saw that her hammer had been taken away. However, she became excited again after a short while. Even without the help of my hammer, I can still easily control those little brats, she thought happily. As the king of the children, she needed to stamp her mark of authority. When she learned that there were many children of her age in that place, she once again recalled what the old man had told her. Only by beating all of your peers can you be called invincible. After watching his two disciples talk for a long time, Yi Zan also said, "All right, I'll be going to the study hall later, so I'll bring her there. However, from tomorrow onward, I'll leave the matter of sending and picking her up to you two." Zhu Yuyu and Feng Xian agreed without hesitation. "All right then, Yuner, come with me." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan picked her up and flew into the sky. "Yay, we're flying again." Shang Yun became even more excited. Soon, they arrived at the study hall. Yi Zan first had a conversation with the study hall's manager, Elder Huang. "Elder Huang, this little girl is the disciple I just accepted. Her name is Shang Yun. She needs to learn how to read, so I'm entrusting her to you today. There's one thing I must mention. This little girl is a little mischievous, so I'm afraid she won't be very obedient." Seeing Yi Zan's troubled expression, Elder Huang looked at the little girl standing next to Yi Zan and said, "It'll be fine. Don't worry, and just leave it to me. Besides, it looks like your disciple is quite well behaved at the moment. You can rest assured that I will teach her to read." This was considered obedient. Thinking this, Yi Zan looked at Shang Yun, who was standing beside him. She was indeed acting well behaved right now. He could barely keep himself from laughing out loud. Cough, maybe she really is quite obedient. In any case, Elder Huang has already given me his word, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm not going to be responsible for what happens in the study hall, There was no way Shang Yun was as obedient as she looked on the surface. Although he thought differently, Yi Zan still said politely, "That's good. I'll have to trouble you then, Elder Huang. It's just a small matter that's not worth mentioning. Just leave it to me. I'll definitely teach her well." After all, in the study hall, every child was naughty. In the end, he had managed to deal with them all. Yi Zan's disciple looked so well behaved, so she had to be a good disciple. Yi Zan's warning felt a little unnecessary. "All right then, I have something to attend to, so I'll be leaving first." Before leaving, Yi Zan looked at Shang Yun again and said, "Yuner, don't mess around. You must learn to read seriously." 617 Disaster Preparation. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Hearing Yi Zan's instructions, Shang Yun said happily, "Teacher, you don't have to worry. You know that I've always been very obedient. I'll learn how to read seriously." Then, after settling Shang Yun's matter, Yi Zan flew off. Ding! You have given your disciple Shang Yun a body-refining sheepskin scroll and have received a 10,000x critical reward. Congratulations! You have obtained a heaven-grade body-refining technique, incomplete immortal grade technique. Oh, Yi Zan raised his eyebrows and muttered to himself, an incomplete immortal grade technique. After carefully reading through the technique's description, Yi Zan was genuinely surprised. Even in ancient times, this technique would have been considered very powerful. That being said, it was incomplete, so the effects of the technique would not be fully unleashed until one mastered and completed it. It was very suitable for Shang Yun to cultivate. This little girl, I really want to know which reincarnated expert you are. While he was thinking this, he was flying toward the meeting hall. By the time he arrived, the chiefs of the other peaks had already arrived. Today, the summons to gather had been issued by Aolei, who had kept the discussion topic a secret. Seeing that Yi Zan had finally arrived, Aolei slowly said, "Everyone, I've called you here today to discuss something important. Senior brother Ao, don't keep us in suspense. Hurry up and tell us what's going on." They recalled that Aolei had left abruptly from Cloud Sky Peak after hearing some news, so they predicted that something serious was going on. Aolei did not beat around the bush and said, "When we attacked and destroyed the immortal divine sect, each of you witnessed the strange power at work personally. Previously, I ordered people to keep an eye on the secret realm in question. Not long ago, my subordinates sent news that the crack in the secret realm is slowly expanding. Given this situation, it is estimated that it won't be long before our mystic world is connected to the secret realm that contains this strange power." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expression changed. If it was allowed to spread, it would definitely cause a major disaster. Anyone who absorbed it, especially weaker cultivators, would have their minds and consciousness completely corroded by the strange power, and be transformed into mindless killing machines. The Berserk Beast's attack had been a result of this, so all of them knew how devastating the recurrence of that incident would be to the East Continent. Gao Shun also opened his mouth with a solemn expression at this time. "Senior brother Ao, do you have a method to resolve this or seal the crack?" Aolei waved his hand and said helplessly, "It's already difficult to break the seal, so it'll be even more difficult to seal it. It's not that there's no way, but we would probably need a sealed immortal realm expert to do so. Even with our combined strength, we won't be able to restore the seal." After hearing these words, everyone realized just how difficult it was to resolve this matter. If the crack was to get bigger and bigger, the mystic world would have to face an unprecedented and devastating disaster. At that time, no one would be safe. Yi Zan's expression also turned serious. With his current cultivation level, he simply did not have the ability to stop this disaster from happening. He needed to become stronger. If this strange power invaded the mystic world, no one could escape. If he wanted to protect the people around him and the Great Wilderness Divine Sect, he had to increase his strength as much as possible before disaster struck. Looking at everyone's expressions, Aolei continued, "Everyone, there's no need to worry too much yet. Right now, the crack is only the size of a fist. It'll probably take a long time for it to expand to a threatening level. However, I'm telling you this in advance to prepare you and motivate you to get stronger. Otherwise, when disaster strikes, everything and everyone we care about will be swept away by it. Cultivate diligently in the days to come, and remind your disciples to do so as well, so that they too can contribute to ensuring the safety of the sect." After saying this, Aolei's mood turned pensive. He was not sure if the Great Wilderness Divine Sect would still be able to survive this disaster. They did not know much about this strange power, other than that it was evil, and that it could contaminate and corrode the minds of living beings. At this moment, after Aolei's warning, everyone was trying to brainstorm ideas to resolve this matter. No one knew when this calamity would come, nor in what way would it affect them. The only thing they could do to protect themselves was to cultivate and grow stronger. Yi Zan suddenly asked, "Senior brother Ao, there's something that I need to tell you. When I was in the ancient tomb, I met cultivators from other continents. There was even one who came from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect." 618 Little Troublemaker. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. Hearing Yi Zan say that, Aolei's expression changed drastically. Could it be that the records of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect in the ancient book aren't lies? It recorded that, in the distant past, the mystic world was divided. The sect master of the Great Wilderness Sect was concerned about the survival of the legacy of the sect, so he split the sect's inheritance. The Great Desolation Divine Power also became incomplete because of this. After the Great Wilderness Divine Sect was split, there was no news of the other party. It was only recorded in the ancient book, but few people know about this. Everyone was shocked to hear this. If that's the case, then are there still people from the Great Wilderness Divine Sect on another continent? Gao Shun's voice was trembling with excitement. Yi Zan answered with certainty, yes, they are now in the Heaven continent. If we compare our two sects, their strength is higher than ours. Hearing that, Gao Shun and the rest became even happier. Senior brother Ao, if the sects are made whole again, will we be able to complete the Great Desolation technique? Gao Shun was already so excited that he was about to dance with joy. It was not just the Great Desolation technique. A portion of the sect's other powerful techniques had become incomplete because of that separation. This had undoubtedly greatly weakened the overall combat power of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect. If these techniques regained their complete state, the strength of both their sects would definitely increase significantly. They might even be able to vie for the title of the #1 sect in the mystic world. At this moment, Aolei was very shocked. The Great Desolation technique was originally an immortal grade divine power, but because it was incomplete, it could currently only be considered a heaven grade divine power. Thinking this, Aolei excitedly asked, Junior Brother Yi, can you communicate with the people of the Heaven Continent's Great Wilderness Divine Sect? Yi Zan waved his hand and said, unfortunately, this is not possible for the time being. If I want to communicate with them, my strength must reach the sealed immortal realm. Otherwise, I can't bypass the worldly power. I can't communicate with them unless I come across an ancient tomb like the last time, or a secret realm that is connected to another continent. They all felt a little helpless after hearing this. All right, let's put this matter aside for now. After all, we haven't reached a critical point yet, and we don't know what the future will bring. Perhaps the 8 continents will have the opportunity to merge in the future. There are many possibilities for the future, both good or bad. The only thing that is certain and wise is that we must seize the time to improve ourselves. As soon as he finished speaking, Aolei let out a long sigh, before continuing, the Divine Seal Peaks gathering is approaching. How are everyone's preparations? The Divine Seal Peaks gathering was the biggest event in the East Continent. If they could obtain a good ranking there, it would undoubtedly increase the reputation of the Great Wilderness Divine Sect, which in turn would attract more talented disciples to join their ranks. Gao Shun smiled at this moment. You don't have to worry about that, Senior Brother Ao. We have already made ample preparations. We'll definitely get a good ranking this time around. While everyone was discussing this, Yi Zan was in deep thought, thinking about what he should do first. With the threat of the strange power looming, he suddenly felt as if he did not have enough time. At this moment, Elder Huang suddenly appeared. He looked very panicked, and his face was covered in wounds. Junior Brother Yi, your disciple. As soon as he arrived, Elder Huang immediately began to cry. Seeing this scene, the chiefs who were present became nervous. Was there an emergency? Did someone attack the sect? Because Elder Huang's cultivation talent was not high, he was only responsible for teaching children to read and write in the sect. Even if someone really came to attack the sect, he would not be drafted into the main fighting force. As such, why had he been beaten up like this now? The chiefs were all very puzzled by this. After seeing Elder Huang's appearance, Yi Zan was stunned. He had already realized what had happened and felt a little embarrassed. Aolei's brows furrowed, as he was unsure about what had happened. Then, everyone looked at Yi Zan in unison, because Elder Huang had clearly come to seek him out. After noticing the gazes, Yi Zan realized that this matter could not be concealed, so he simply said, Elder Huang, tell me what happened. Could it be that my disciple has caused you trouble? After hearing this, the chiefs present were momentarily stunned, before remembering that Yi Zan had indeed recruited a new disciple recently. However, that disciple of his looked to be at most 6 years old, so what kind of big trouble could she cause? Elder Huang's face was filled with helplessness as he cried, Junior Brother Yi, you should hurry over and take a look. The disciple you took in really can't be taught by ordinary people. Why don't you take her back to Cloud Sky Peak and teach her yourself? I really can't help you. It's only been a short while, and almost all the children in the study hall have been beaten up by her, especially Sword Spirit Peak's martial nephew Li, who was beaten beyond recognition. Upon hearing this, Li Dahai could not sit and watch. What? Junior Brother Yi. Seeing Li Dahai's furious appearance, Yi Zan felt a little guilty at this time, but he was also helpless. This little girl was really good at causing trouble. The other chiefs could not help but burst into laughter after hearing this. PFF'd. Junior Brother Yi, this disciple you've taken in is comparable to martial uncle Tian Zan when he was young. Gao Shun held his stomach and laughed. 619 Eden what? Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So M. At this time, Gao Shun was thankful that Gao Tianyu had already grown up and was not of the same generation as Yi Zhan's newest disciple. Otherwise, he would definitely have been beaten up. Who knew where Yi Zhan had brought this disciple back from? It seemed that this little girl was really a tough one. She was so young, yet so strong. The children at the study hall were not cultivators, but they had great potential. Moreover, their families would usually use a lot of heavenly treasures to strengthen their cultivation foundation so that they would have a better chance of going further on the path of cultivation. However, so what? They were still beaten up by this little girl that Yi Zhan had taken in. Yi Zhan smiled helplessly and did not say anything. It seemed that he had become the butt of the joke today thanks to Shang Yun. Junior brother Yi, you should go over and take a look first. It won't be good if this little girl causes some more trouble later. Aolei was laughing as he spoke. The originally serious atmosphere had suddenly become much more lighthearted. That's right, junior brother, you'd better hurry over. I'm afraid that if you don't go over soon, the children might be crippled by her, Elder Huang said helplessly. Yi Zhan's newest disciple was too much of a troublemaker. Originally, he had thought that this little girl was a very obedient and disciplined child. However, who would have thought that only a short while later, even he, who had tried to stop the fighting, had been punched a few times to the point where his face had turned blue and purple. Although this little girl was young, she was strong. Moreover, this little girl was Yi Zhan's disciple, so he did not dare to hit back. He did not want to offend a Supreme Realm expert for no reason. All right, I'll go over and take a look first. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zhan accompanied Elder Huang to the study hall. Upon seeing this, Li Dahai and the other chiefs quickly followed. No matter what, the children there were still the descendants of their families or their disciples' families, so it would be good if they made an appearance. After a while, they arrived at the study hall and could see something going on through the windows. What could be seen was a little girl standing on the table in a very domineering manner. She was even holding a broom in her hand, and wielding it like a staff. At the corner of the wall, a group of children could be seen. Shang Yun spoke proudly, "What is this? Did big sister lie to me? She said that the children here are quite strong, but none of them can fight. They're all weaklings." Seeing how arrogant Shang Yun was, a boy with two panda eyes stepped out of the group. Although he looked like he was about to cry, he still held his head high and said, "How dare you make me look like this? Don't you know who my father is? My father is the chief of Sword Spirit Peak. Just you wait, you stinky girl. I'm going to call my father over to give you a good beating." HMPH. Shang Yun snorted and retorted, "My teacher is the chief of Cloud Sky Peak. Who the hell is your father? Go back to the corner and continue squatting there." This, Li Dahai, who was standing outside the window, was speechless when he heard that. Yi Zhan was sweating at this time. This girl really did not mince her words at all. Ahem, senior brother Li, don't take the words of a child seriously. They mean no harm, just bear with it. Li Dahai's expression was dark, and he felt pained when he saw his child in this state. This child of his was a treasure. He was usually pampered, but Yi Zhan's disciple had beaten him until he had panda eyes. How was he going to explain this to his wife? He would probably not hear the end of this from her. However, what could he do? The little girl was Yi Zhan's disciple, and he was no match for Yi Zhan. Inside the study hall, Li Yi became even angrier after hearing Shang Yun's words. After all, in his opinion, his father was an invincible existence. He would never allow anyone to speak ill of him. However, he did not know how to refute her. After thinking for a while, he said, "What are you proud of? My dad is good with spears, but your master doesn't know anything." HMPH. Who says he doesn't? In any case, my teacher's swordsmanship beats the SHT out of your father's spearmanship. What did you say? Li Yi became even more anxious, and he said without thinking, "My father has eaten SHT before." Has your teacher eaten SHT before? Oh my god. After hearing these words, everyone's mouth fell open in shock. Immediately after, Aolei, Gao Shun, Yuelin, and Yi Zhan all turned to look at Li Dahai in unison, their eyes filled with disbelief. At that moment, Li Dahai's face was extremely dark. "Just wait, you brat. I'm going to give you a proper beating today." Then, Yi Zhan, who was still gloating, suddenly moved. Before Shang Yun could respond, he teleported behind her and covered her mouth tightly. Although her mouth was covered, Yi Zhan could vaguely guess what she was about to say, and it was not something good. "Fortunately, I was fast enough. Otherwise, I would become a laughingstock again." MMMFF. Even though Shang Yun could not say anything now, she was still thinking to herself, who dares to treat me like this? She turned around fiercely, only to see that it was her teacher. She was shocked. A second later, the originally overbearing personality disappeared, and she said in a very aggrieved manner, "Oh, teacher, these kids think that I'm easy to bully because I'm a girl." Hearing this, Yi Zan felt even more embarrassed and did not know what to say. Li Dahai had also entered the room at this moment. When he saw the child with panda eyes in the corner, his expression darkened further. 620 dropout. Arliss reading Omicron N Beta OX Nouvelle. So This group of boys had actually lost to a little girl. It was really embarrassing. Daddy. Li Yi burst into tears when he saw Li Dahai. He ran up to hug his father's thigh. However, Li Dahai felt both embarrassed and angry. It was fine that his son lost to Yi Zan's disciple. However, what was with that mouth of his? How could he say that his father had Eastern SHT? At this moment, he even felt like slapping his son. However, when he thought about his wife, he decided against it. Further away, Yi Zan said with a straight face, "Yuner, what's wrong with you? Before I left, I specifically told you to be serious about learning how to read. It's only been a short while, but you're already causing trouble." Shang Yun became even angrier when she heard that. She replied angrily, "Teacher, it's not because of me this time. I wanted to study hard, but this group of little brats kept finding trouble with me, especially him. I really couldn't stand it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have beaten them up like this. HMPH, they even tried to gang up on me. I definitely couldn't let them off." As she spoke, Shang Yun became even more excited, as if she was not done fighting yet. Looking at her puffed up face, Yi Zan smiled and could not help but rub her head. This girl really had a bad temper. Offending her was like poking a bee's nest, and violence was the way she solved problems. After figuring out the reason behind the fight, Yi Zan chuckled. Since she was not the cause of the matter, she could not be blamed. It seemed that he had avoided the task of having to perform damage control, which made him feel quite relieved. The cause of this incident was not his disciple at all, but Li Yi. Li Yi had challenged his disciple and was defeated. Sword Spirit Peak would probably be laughed at for a while because of this. Li Dahai had also asked his son about it, and his son was really honest and straightforward, telling him everything that had happened without twisting the facts. After hearing his son's reason, Li Dahai's face was as black as charcoal. Is this silly boy really my son? He's got no street smarts at all. If he changed the story just a bit, at the very least, he would have shared the blame with Shang Yun. Instead, this kid had caused the trouble, and actually admitted to it openly. "I'll teach you a lesson when we get home," Li Dahai said helplessly. "Ahem, junior brother Yi. It was my son's fault for what happened today. He deserved this beating, and I'll reprimand him further when I get home so that he won't stir up any more trouble." Hearing these words, Yi Zan's expression remained calm. "It's all right, senior brother Li, let's not blame these children. After all, they are still young and don't know any better. My disciple was a little too heavy-handed and beat up your son really badly. I'll bring her over to Sword Spirit Peak another day and ask her to apologize to your son." Upon hearing that, Li Dahai was speechless. No way. Li Yi was much older than Shang Yun, yet he had lost to the latter easily. If she was really forced to apologize to him, would that not be the same as telling everyone that not only was he lacking in terms of strength, but also that he was relying on his father's status to bully others? Ahem, I don't think that's necessary. It's very normal for children to play around. He has to accept his loss. It's his own fault, and he just has to train harder in order to get stronger. Li Dahai knew that his reputation had taken a hit today, so he did not stay for long. He picked up Li Yi and said goodbye to the chiefs present before slipping away. The rest of the children were also brought back at this time. Today's incident was indeed a little outrageous. Everyone looked at the little girl beside Yi Zan in shock. How could this little girl be so strong? A while later, Aulay curiously went over to Shang Yun's side, but quickly noticed that there was a powerful force protecting her body, preventing others from probing her. It was obvious that this was Yi Zan's doing. Then, after looking at it carefully, he suddenly noticed the seal on her forehead. Hiss. Aulay instantly thought of something and said with a smile, "Haha, junior brother Yi, this disciple you've recruited is amazing. She must be a very talented person." His eyes were still filled with disbelief, as he understood what that seal represented. Yizan replied very humbly. No, my disciple's personality is a little crude, so it's hard to say what kind of achievements she will have in the future. Aolei's expression stiffened. This kid was showing off again. However, he had picked up a genius disciple from the middle of nowhere. He truly had an eye for talent and the luck of the gods. He was also full of anticipation. What level would this little girl reach in the future? While he was deep in thought, Elder Huang spoke up. Junior brother Yi, why don't you take your disciple back to Cloud Sky Peak and teach her? I really can't help you out this time. Have pity on this senior brother of yours. My old bones can't take a beating, you know. Elder Huang was already afraid of Shang Yun. He had totally misjudged her temperament and capability. Yizan also felt very helpless at this time. This little girl had only joined the study hall for less than a day, yet was already dropping out. This achievement would probably become a talking point in the sect for quite some time. All right then, I won't trouble you to teach my disciple anymore. I won't trouble you to teach my disciple.